Hello! Here's something I've not really ever spoken about on this channel before, and that's as a result of not having uploaded a previous video about this, but now I have, so I'm going to talk about it. So a few weeks, months, I don't know how long ago, I uploaded a video letting you all know that I am Jewish. And I was really nervous about making that video, but actually I think I've had no reactions to it, which is good. No reactions is good. But now that I've made that video, I really want to be able to talk about certain things that I've not been able to in the past to do with my Judaism. Because so basically in Judaism there's a lot of like streams, and there are lots of like different levels of religiousness basically. And of course it's the same in every religion, but I think it's very obvious and distinct in Judaism. And kind of the level that I am is obviously not like extremely super religious, because if I was, I wouldn't wear trousers. I'd be, you know, very much more strict about what I wear, and there'd be just a lot of other things, a lot, that would be different, or, you know, so much. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be working on the ship, I think. So I'm not that level. But then also on the other hand, there are a lot of Jewish people in the world who don't really do anything to do with their Judaism. And they're what we call secular Jews. And even within that, there's a range of what people do. And the way Judaism works as well is that if you are born to a Jewish mother, you are automatically Jewish and you cannot rescind that. So even if you try to convert to a different religion, Jewish people will always say you're still Jewish. So as a result, you can have like Jews who technically personally affiliate with Christianity or Islam or anything like that. And I'm somewhere in the middle, but probably leaning a little bit more to the slightly more religious side. And that's largely based on, well, mostly based on my parents and my upbringing. I'm very much like, basically I call myself a traditional Jew. I follow what my parents do and did. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is because tomorrow it is the start of the Jewish holiday, one of the main Jewish holidays, the Jewish New Year. And it's called Rosh Hashana, which means literally head of the year. And basically you celebrate it for 2 days, and you're meant to eat lots of meals, and we've got loads of traditions, which I'll go into in a minute. And then like the whole month, basically there are like Jewish months, and the first month of the year starts with the Jewish New Year, which makes sense, I think. But that whole first month is just filled with Jewish holidays. And I'll be honest, I find it really hard to be away from my family, from a Jewish community, from anything at all when these holidays come round. I find it hard anyway. I find it really, really hard to be away from my parents, like even in daily life, and to be away from the Jewish community, even in daily life. But especially when the Jewish holidays roll around, I find that really, especially tough. And that's one of the reasons why I was so insistent on going back around April to Australia, because that's when Passover falls, or Pesach. Sorry, I felt like I had to move the camera. And especially with Pesach, it's even harder to be on your own. And everyone has their own traditions and things, and I just really wanted to be with my family. And I'm very, very grateful I was able to be there. But now it's Rosh Hashana, and I'm on my own. And I'm not even in a city, I'm on a ship, so I'm moving. So I can't even, you know, try and find a Jewish family in a city to be with, or a synagogue. And that for me is something that I would usually do. We would have meals, and I would go to synagogue, I would do those things. And then the other thing is that some of the traditions and things that we do with Rosh Hashana, I can't do. So, for example, one of those things is to have apple and honey. The apple is round, meant to represent the year, and then the honey is to wish you a sweet new year. And that is one thing I am going to try and do. I've got some honey still from when I stole it, and I'm going to ask the kitchen for an apple, because I do think we have some. But then another thing is to have challah. You might have heard of challah. It's like the Jewish bread, and you have it every Friday night for Shabbat, the Sabbath. But it's usually braided, as you've probably seen. But for Rosh Hashana, you have it round, because again, to represent the year. And I won't have that. I can't get that. So my version of it is I'm gonna see from the kitchen again if I can get just some round rolls and dip that in the honey as well. And then another thing is you're meant to light the candles, and that's for every Friday night and for all the holidays. And we're not allowed candles on board for obvious reasons, but like it's just another part of the ritual that I can't do. And another thing, this is a really silly thing, is it's very like traditional to have pomegranate as well, because all the seeds in the pomegranate are meant to reflect the laws that we have, like the laws. like the amount, but I haven't got any pomegranates, and it's like, it's all these silly little things, and it's just heartbreaking. It's so hard to be away for these things. And obviously, like, the main thing I feel is just it's hard being away from my family and from the Jewish community. But then it's these little things that just remind you of like why else it's hard. And that is a big contributor to why I want to stay in one place next year, and ideally a place with a Jewish community. And look, I don't really know what the purpose of this video is. I want to talk more about my Judaism, and this feels like a really good place to start. And a really good time, because as I say, it's the Jewish New Year. And then while we're on the topic, I'm also going to talk about what comes right after the New Year, and just another reason that it really hits me hard. The most religious, sort of sacred day in our Jewish calendar comes up 10 days after the New Year. And it is the one day that, like, even the more secular Jews usually at least do something to acknowledge it. And basically, the day is called Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And the way Judaism works, and I am sorry if I'm saying all this wrong. I did have a good Jewish education, but equally I'm not a rabbi, so bear with, and I'm sorry if I'm saying things wrong. We obviously believe in God, and we believe that on that first day of the new year, God has books, so to speak, that he writes our names into, and there's like a book of life and a book of death. Sounds morbid? And he writes our names into them, depending on how we've behaved in the past year. And you kind of have the last month of the year, the equivalent of December, so to speak. You have that time to ask for forgiveness and to try and atone for your sins and all that jazz. And then on the new year is when he sort of writes the names in and decides where you're going to go. But then you've got that 10-day grace period to basically change his mind. I feel weird about using his, I might change it to there. And so on that 10th day, Yom Kippur, we do everything we can to be put into the book of life. So you tend to wear white because that's the colour of angels and purity. You don't wear any leather shoes. I think there's discrepancies as to whether or not you can wear like a leather jacket or whatever, but I just don't wear leather. You tend to spend the whole day in shul, synagogue, and like praying. And the main thing, for me anyway, the main thing is you don't eat or drink anything for 25 hours, unless you've obviously got a medical condition or whatever. And again, that's to cleanse your body and to show you are just fully dedicated to God. And that day especially, I find really, really hard to be away from family and the Jewish community, and to not be able to go to a shul, because it's such a meaningful day for me. My belief in God is complicated, and I don't know how I feel about it. But what I do know is that I do feel something, a connection to something on that day. I think it's probably a bit of like, I don't want to risk it, because there's something so sinister about it. And you just want to believe that there is someone deciding that for you at the start of the year. So that day is stressful, but once it's like a contract basically. You do the job interview and you're terrified, but then once you've got to the end of that job interview, you know you've got the contract for a year, for example. Except it's different because you don't know the result. And there's something really so scary about it, and it just makes you think about your own mortality and the people around you, and it's so different in my opinion to the regular New Year, because as you might know from this channel, I do take the New Year very, very seriously. I don't like time moving forward, I don't like the number changing, there's things, and I always do resolutions, I like to do my like yearly wrap-ups. There's a whole bunch that I like to do around sort of the Gregorian New Year. But I feel very different about the Jewish New Year. I don't feel that same like wrap-up kind of energy or resolution energy, but I do feel that like wanting to be a better person and wanting to ask for forgiveness and, you know, make things right with the people I might have wronged, and to really focus on myself as a person. In fact, the video I made last year about my last day off in Greece, when I had a lot of like self-reflection, that was about this day and this time period. And I think there's something so nice about that, but it's also really intense. And it's nice to be able to share that with, especially for me, my family, but as I say, the whole Jewish community. And it's just an amazing sight to see so many people in white in a shul praying together, hearing these like, not sad, but like melancholy, I don't know, tunes, like sinister, I suppose. And you just feel like the depth of it and the seriousness. I can't put this into words, but it's very moving, and it's always very nice to be with my family. and so it's very hard to not be with them. And I've not been with them since COVID, I think, so 2020. 3 years now. And it just feels very heavy and it's just rubbish. It just sucks. Yeah, I think that's it for this video. Please be respectful if you're gonna comment. I know that the way we do things might not be the same as anything you've ever heard of, and it might sound strange to you. I did have someone once comment to me in person that it sounds like depression, and I didn't appreciate that. Because I can understand why they would say that, but it just doesn't come across nicely when you say that. So look, I know that a lot of you probably don't know much about this, and so you might be saying things with ignorance, and that's okay. And I will be respectful in the comments as well, obviously, so please do ask questions. I want more people to know about the good side of Judaism and the things we do. Because I feel like unless you're in the Jewish community, you don't really know much. You might know about the apple and honey, but that's about it. And I like to share, and I like, as I said in that video where I first said I was Jewish, it's all about building bridges for me. So tell me about things that you do in your religion, and I'm telling you about things I do in mine, and let's have a conversation, but just be nice. And if you have nothing nice to say, please just don't say it at all. I feel nervous about this, but I also feel good. I feel like I've said what I wanted to say, and I guess we'll see what the reaction brings. So yeah, goodbye, and I'll see you in the Jewish New Year. That's one thing though, actually, I didn't say this earlier. I don't get as affected about the number changing when it's the Jewish New Year. Like, it just doesn't hit me as hard in that sense, but as I say, there's a lot of other senses. I think basically it comes down to the Gregorian New Year for me is very, I don't want to say superficial, but it's very much like outward, and then the Jewish New Year is a bit more inward and self-reflecting. I don't know. Anyway, I will see you all in the next video, whenever that may be. Goodbye.